WVUA-FM, Tuscaloosa.
Hello, everybody. This is WVUA 90.7 FM, The Capstone, and welcome to episode number 24 of the Full Court Press Podcast.
Kobe.
Shout out Kobe Bryant. May he rest in peace. My name is Jamie Martinez, and I'm joined by Alex Chasen and Nick Atkinson. On today's episode, look forward to our recap of All-Star Weekend and how the top teams look going into the second half of the season. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at FCP_podcast_UA and on TikTok at FCP_podcast. With that being said, let's get into it.
Let's get right into it. We have a slew of news for you guys today. A ton of news, which is surprising because we just had a show that aired on Monday, and we covered a good amount of news, but not a ton. But so much has happened in the past few days. Jumping right into it, coaching news. The Hawks have fired head coach Nate McMillan. Wow. Nick, I'm going to jump to you first on this one because you've always supported Nate McMillan. We went to the Hawks game back in November. You always said you were a big supporter of him. What's this mean, and where do you think his next stop will be? Or where do you think it should be, because he's a good coach?
Okay, well, for one, I think this was the stupidest move that they ever could have made. He led you to an Eastern Conference Finals appearance just 2 years ago, and he has you don't see coaches nowadays getting full control of that offense in that locker room. You know what I'm saying? No coaches are actually out there handling their teams. But now they're going to try to bring in some new guy with 22 games left in the season. It's
their assistant coach right now.
Yeah.
Who's been in the league for a very long time.
But I'm assuming that they're going to bring in somebody, and it's not looking good for them right now, if you ask me. They're already kind of just in a weird place as a franchise right now. They could slip out of the play-in before we know it.
Which we'll touch on later.
You know, the Bulls are a very good team. I think that the Bulls could make a run for the Hawks spot, because I think that, you know, there's some very good locks in that play-in right now that are not falling out, and the Hawks will be the one to fall out, I think. So
definitely.
I think as far as where I'd like to see him go, love to have him in Charlotte.
Yeah, that'd be a great.
You know, they're a young team. He's going to be able to bring that team some sort of veteran value and just, you know, actually hold them accountable, unlike Steve Clifford and James Borrego has been able to do. So I think that would be a good landing spot for him. Most realistically, though, I could see him going somewhere like, I was going to say Dallas, but Jason Kidd's actually been kind of nice for them. But maybe the Timberwolves.
Or maybe the Pacers, because I know...
He used to coach there, but Rick Carlisle.
Yeah, Rick Carlisle. I think it's on like his last couple of years there, because he said he wanted to retire as a Pacers head coach. That's where he started originally his career.
Well, he could go back to Indiana, but...
I really like the Timberwolves.
I think the Timberwolves will be a really good...
They just got a new coach, though.
But Nate McMillan's, you know, a top 5 coach in the NBA. So, I mean, I'd fire anybody for Nate McMillan. Me personally, for the Sixers, though, I wouldn't want him.
Because I asked you that earlier. Yeah, let's start with the Sixers. Why not?
Because he's such a defensive-minded coach, and I think that our offense would not benefit from him because he'd want to run all these weird sets where we are a three-point shooting team, but we're more of a, like, space the floor type of three-point shooting team, not, you know, go down the court and shoot 30-footers as soon as you're on a fast break. That's what he's used. That's what he's been coaching, so I feel like he'll continue to do that. But yeah, I just think the Hornets would be a really good spot for him. So
their new coach right now was their assistant coach, now interim coach, Joe Prutney. He's been with the organization since 2021. He's been in the league since 1996, where he started with the Spurs, and he's been an assistant coach his entire career. He was an interim coach in 2018 season with the Bucks. When they fired Jason Kidd, he got the interim spot before they got Mike Budenholzer, but now he is the interim coach for the Atlanta Hawks. Let's see what he can do, and maybe he actually can land a starting head coaching job in the NBA. We shall see on that front. Jumping into the next news here, more coaching news, actually. Jacques Vaughn has got a contract extension through the 2026-2027 season. What's your take on this one, Jamie?
So, Jacques Vaughn has done an absolutely spectacular job since coming in for Steve Nash. Nash left a lot to be desired with a dysfunctional team. Jacques Vaughn comes in, tames it down a little. They start winning a ton of ball games. KD and Kyrie end up leaving, but he gets a lot of young pieces in return. He's very deserving of this contract because he's out here winning games, and I believe they're going to be winning games for a very, very long time.
I agree with that. How about you, Nick?
I mean, I love Jacques Vaughn. I think that he's well deserving of this, of this spot. I think that the fact that he's finally getting a job that he deserves for an organization that he's been working for forever, I think it's well deserving. Like Jamie said, he's on a young team. He's a young coach, so he's going to be here for the foreseeable future, especially the way he's been, leading the team itself.
I agree.
So I think
got a lot of young people around him.
Exactly. So I think that's what's going to make the team, go look good in the future. So.
Jumping into the buyout market, which we touched on a lot more last episode.
Here we go.
Let's start off with the biggest one of them all. The debate might start here a little bit, but I think we're going to save it from when we talk about the Clippers / the Nuggets down later in today's show. But we'll start off with the buyout market. After finalizing a contract buyout with the Utah Jazz, the 9-time All-Star guard Russell Westbrook plans or did sign with the Los Angeles Clippers. Nick, I'm leaving this one up to you, and then we'll jump to Jamie, but starting off with Nick. How do you feel that your boy, your favorite player in the entire world, Russell Westbrook, is now a Los Angeles Clipper?
It feels really good because people like Shams are sitting there trying to say he's not going to have a job. I think that was, the biggest blasphemy I've heard in the last 20 years. I think it's kind of insane to think that a top 5 point guard of all time isn't going to have a job. It doesn't, regardless if he's out of the league, terrible, OKC is going to sign him to be in that locker room.
Yeah.
I don't care what happens. That's just the reality of it. That's just what's going to happen. He's not going to not have a job until he doesn't want a job, in my opinion, at least. And for what he brings to the team, in my opinion, he brings. I would like to get into it when we get into our rankings.
That's
so
fair enough.
I'll just hold that.
Yeah, fair enough. Next on the buyout market news, the Chicago Bulls have signed guard Patrick Beverley. Jamie, what's your take on that?
So, Pat Bev was a guy that I didn't think was necessarily going to get signed. I saw the Timberwolves in his future, a team that wasn't really defensive heavy, getting a nice defender back on the team, but he goes to Chicago, which is honestly another place that needs that defense. They lose out on Lonzo Ball for the season.
Right.
Extremely unfortunate news. And they get Pat Bev in return, which offensively is, it leaves a lot to be desired, but defensively is going to help out that very young front court that they have, which includes 2 All-Stars in Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. So in short term, I think this could help their young guys, but signing Pat Bev, I think they're, not necessarily planning for a deep playoff run.
I heard an interesting take on this, and it was, why didn't Pat Bev sign like a deal with someone like the Sixers just to hang out on their bench, or the Warriors, or the Celtics, some of those teams that have an open roster spot, just to get an extra ring chase. What I heard was Patrick Beverley's agent, why would he want him, or even Patrick Beverley himself, why would he want to go to a team where he's going to get a minimum contract and not play? Because then that sets the precedent where, okay, future contracts down the line, this man doesn't really care, so we're not going to pay him. So I think he went to the Bulls to where he'll get minutes.
Revive his career
a little bit. Not really revive, he's already old, but this summer he'll get paid as a bench player and not as someone who just wants to be a 13th man to ring chase, where they won't even give you more than a minimum. So I think that's why he did it, just to make sure this summer he can get paid a regular 6-man salary and not just, I'm going to give you a minimum because you're just going to sit there anyway. So I heard that interesting take. I think it was on Boston Sports Radio, actually, just when I was listening to my home station. So I thought that take was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I went from hating Patrick Beverley in June. Now I really like him. So like how I was saying, I think the Bulls can make a run for that playing spot. I think that Patrick Beverley, he's not the greatest playmaker, but that defense that he's going to add to the team, I think, is going to be really nice. Zach LaVine kind of be the primary playmaker, but I think this is a very good signing for them.
What I like about Pat Bev is he brings an entirely new attitude to a team that they didn't have before. He completely shifted the Lakers, their entire attitude. Same with Minnesota.
Yes,
and
especially
so
Minnesota.
Now he comes to a Bulls team with really no personality, no identity, and Patrick Beverley, for being not the greatest player, is going to bring a whole new swagger to Chicago.
Absolutely.
One that they've been missing for quite a while.
I think so too.
I think this is going to be really good for him.
Yeah.
Kevin Love was bought out by the Cavs. Surprisingly, we'll jump into that a little bit more. At least I will when I talk about the Cavaliers / the Heat later. But I just gave it up. He signed with the Miami Heat. What are your guys' takes on this?
So, Kevin Love is an interesting case. He has been with Cleveland through it all. 5-time All-Star. He's been with Cleveland with their championship.
I don't think he was an All-Star with the Cavs.
No, he wasn't. He is a 5-time All-Star, though.
Yeah.
And now, randomly, as the Cavaliers are kind of rejuvenating themselves, he leaves and goes to Miami, which is a little interesting in many people's eyes, but I kind of get it. He wants a more prominent role on a winning team.
Right.
So he's leaving a really good team in the Cavs, but he's going to another pretty good team in the Heat, and he's going to get more of a prominent
He'll
role.
probably start over Caleb
He's
Martin.
probably
Yes,
going to
he
start
definitely will,
alongside Bam
Which I was gonna
Adebayo,
talk
Jimmy
about that
Butler.
right now.
It's going to be a very good team, and he's going to bring a lot of spacing to a team that didn't necessarily have a ton at all. So
And defense. He's
I
an underrated
think
defender.
this is going to be a good signing for the Heat.
I definitely agree on that. Jumping into some more news, Washington guard Will Barton has completed his contract buyout ahead of the March 1st deadline to become eligible to join a playoff roster on a new team.
Future Clipper.
He has no spot right now. The Celtics have an open roster spot, but again, like I talked about earlier, does he want to become one of those guys where he just sits there and then this coming offseason he doesn't get paid because people are only going to pay him a minimum contract for a bench, like a 13th roster spot, like where Blake Griffin is in his career? So what do you guys think is going to happen with Will Barton? Nick just said the Clippers. You want to expand on that?
I was just kidding. We don't have a roster spot open, but I think he's too good to do a Blake Griffin type of thing. He can still average 11 points per game off the bench. I think a good landing spot for him would be, I could say Golden State, because they kind of lack that backup small forward. They lost that in Otto Porter last season, so I think that he'd do really good there. I think Memphis will be a good destination. I think Cleveland will be really nice. You just lost Kevin Love, so now you get him instead of him. Yeah. So I think those will be 3 really good destinations for him.
How about you, Jimmy?
Will Barton, I think he could just be serviceable for really anybody right now. I could definitely see him going to a contending team. I do like the idea of the Warriors. Sacramento could be another possibility. Maybe like cutting somebody like Alex Len or Matt Delly and bringing in Will Barton could help.
Definitely over Dellavedova.
Yeah,
he does
just bringing him in, help with the bench scoring that Sacramento over the last few games has definitely lacked. So I do think bringing in Will Barton to Sacramento would not be a bad idea.
I also think that the Celtics could use him because y'all have Sam Hauser as the backup small forward.
He's good, though.
And that's what I'll kind of get into later on the Celtics. I think if y'all got Will Barton, that'd be amazing.
I think Sam Hauser does his role. We can expand on it later when we discuss that. But jumping into final buyout news, it's not really like a player. It's more the players that are available in the free agency market as of today, with approximately 1/3 of NBA teams still with an available roster spot. Like we just mentioned, teams like the Celtics, teams like the Cavs, a lot of teams have one open roster spot left before the deadline comes to sign these guys. Players like Serge Ibaka, John Wall, LaMarcus Aldridge, Will Barton, like I just mentioned, Stanley Johnson, Wayne Ellington, Tyler Johnson, Sterling Brown, Hassan Whiteside, David Nwaba, and MCW. Shout out my St. Andrews School alumni. Michael Carter-Williams is also available. There's some notable free agents. We don't need to get too deep into it. I was just naming some other guys to keep your eyes on that might be looking for a roster spot, maybe a 10-day to prove themselves against someone like an MCW. Again, I saw a post today. He had the best rookie performance ever. MCW.
Yeah, I saw that.
He got like almost a triple-double in his rookie game.
9 steals.
9 steals. He won Rookie of the Year, though.
Yeah.
That's one of our rookies. So it's one of the Sixers rookies. So,
I know. Trust the process.
Chill out on that. Yeah.
Trust the process.
Other free agency news, Heat signed Cody Zeller. This one was completely quiet. I didn't even know this until a few hours ago when I was looking at when Kevin Love signed with the Miami Heat. It also said a little blurb next to it, and Cody Zeller. I was like, huh? When did this happen? And it's not even a 10-day. It's for the rest of the season. Completely quiet. Almost swept under the rug. I don't even think Woj or Shams really even posted about it. If they did, I missed it. Anyways, it's in our notes. He signed Cody Zeller. That definitely helps with another big man. I mean, they definitely needed a little bit of depth there. Now they have Kevin Love and Cody Zeller for their big man presence. I know Love is more of a power forward, but he can play the center as well. So not too big, but I definitely like it for the Heat. Next up, after clearing waivers, this was surprising, by the way, guard R.J. Hampton signed with the Detroit Pistons. Sources tell Woj and ESPN. He was the 24th overall pick in the 2020 draft. He averages around 5.7 points in 14 minutes with the Magic this season. He started off with, I believe he got drafted by the Nuggets, and then he got traded to the Magic, and that's where he's been for the past season and a half, roughly.
He was in the Gary Harris trade.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he was. Very surprising, by the way. But I kind of understand it. I mean, with the Pistons, he might get a bigger role with Cade Cunningham out all season.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I love this for the Pistons. The Magic cut another one of their young guards, I guess.
They have an abundance.
They have an influx,
Suggs,
so I do
Fultz,
think that this is
Anthony.
good for them. But the Pistons get one in, I guess replacing Cade Cunningham just for the
Hayes,
season.
Though, has been doing well.
Killian Hayes, I see a lot of hate about him, but
he could just be the backup too.
I think if R.J. Hampton can get the progression he needs, because he was a beast in Australia before he was drafted, extremely hyped up prospect.
LaMelo were neck and neck,
and then he kind of falls off. So I think it'll be cool if he can kind of rejuvenate himself with a struggling team like the Pistons.
Yeah.
On top of that, after they waived R.J. Hampton, that being the Magic, they converted Admiral Schofield's two-way contract to a standard NBA deal through this season and the following season, which I'm really happy about that because he got drafted by the Wizards and then he got released or traded by them or got traded then released by a team last season, and he kind of fell off. He didn't get picked up by anyone last year. He was on just a G League two-way contract this year, and he kind of proved himself, got called up to the regular Magic roster, and now he's earned himself a full NBA contract. So I'm happy he's kind of gotten back into the NBA. I liked him coming out of the draft out of Tennessee. He played with Grant Williams, so I'm happy to see him back in the NBA, at least right now, and hopefully he can continue to prove himself. Injury news, we only got one on the docket today, and it's really sad. Lonzo Ball will not return this season. I think it was Nick that alluded to this earlier. The focus for Ball this is a quote from the team, the focus for Ball will continue to be on the resolution of his discomfort and a full return for the 23-24 season. We talked about this on a previous podcast. We may know if he ever plays again, or starting right now, we may never know if he's obviously not coming back this season because he has chronic foot problems, and they've done everything they can, and they cannot figure out why, which is really sad. And when you kind of get to that point in medical stuff, it's like, how? There's so many doctors that are amazing and figure everything out. So this is crazy. It's really sad.
I agree. I think it's good to just go ahead and focus on next season. I think he will be able to return next season. I think that however this season goes for the Bulls, he could be on the next team a new team next season.
I don't know. I think he's a very important piece of that Bulls team. I was the one that brought it up earlier. I think Lonzo Ball is way too important for the Bulls to just not keep him around.
Well, I'm saying that
he was the reason they were a playoff team last year.
So I think if they don't make the playoffs, then they're just going to rebuild.
You think so?
DeMar DeRozan's going to be 34 years old.
Yeah, that's true.
He's going to be old.
I think Lonzo Ball, to make an NFL comparison, this is kind of similar to Tua Tagovailoa in the NFL, where they both got those similar nagging injuries, and it could be career-ending if it goes wrong. So hopefully that's not the case for Lonzo Ball, or Tua for that matter. So hopefully Lonzo Ball can come back next season even stronger than he has been.
We have 3 guys who have signed 10-day contracts. It's that time of the year where you sign 10-day contracts to try to prove yourself again and try to get that into a full contract. 3 notable guys who are on 10 days right now. Myers Leonard has signed with the Bucks. He has not played since the NBA bubble where he made anti-Semitic remarks when he was playing video games. I believe he was live streaming COD in the NBA bubble, and then he got suspended from the NBA, and no one has wanted him since. And that was in the NBA bubble. That was back in 2020. So it's been 3 years since we've seen Myers Leonard. But anyways, the Bucks have signed him to a 10-day. Next up, shout out my Providence Friar, Chris Dunn. He has signed a 10-day with the Utah Jazz. And then Frank Jackson, who Nick and I saw when we went to the Pelicans Birmingham game. He's on the Utah G League team. Frank Jackson has signed with the Utah Jazz for a 10-day contract. Hopefully he can be another one who proves himself to get back into the NBA. He was the first pick in the second round. I believe he was drafted in 2016, 17, around there. He was the first pick of the second round. So let's see if he can prove himself and get back on an NBA roster permanently. With all that being said, let's jump over to Nick and let's get us into the 2 main segments today. What are we starting off with first, Nick?
The recap of the All-Star Weekend.
Alrighty.
So first, we'll start off with the skills challenge. Team Antetokounmpo, you get the gist, but Drew Holiday did replace Giannis in this, but the team winner was Team Jazz.
And that was Jamie who predicted
called that one, baby.
Yeah, we'll also talk about the predictions.
You call me a bozo for that.
Next up was the Starry 3-point contest. Shout out Jack Purser. Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard is the winner of that.
And who called that one? I did, because I said he has the most experience. And he won that. I did. I called Damian Lillard because he has the most experience. All the other guys will be nervous little babies because they're either young and never done it before, or they're just not good 3-point shooters like someone like Julius Randle. But most of them were just young.
Shout out Kevin Herter for selling the bag, too.
Damian Lillard won that one. I called that one.
Moving on to the dunk contest.
I called that one, too.
The contest that LeBron James ruined. Which
I saw that on ESPN.
I agree with that. You
Really?
know, there's no superstars that do it anymore. I do love the matchup that Mac McClung and Trey Murphy had. I think that was one of the best ones we've seen since Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine.
Man.
So I think
Mac McClung, though, he didn't miss one dunk.
No, he didn't.
I'm sorry. Mac McClung killed it.
And Trey Murphy did amazing, too.
Yeah, he did really good.
Can I say my favorite part of that? Is his first dunk, Mac McClung's dunk. Yeah, I don't know if it was his father and his brother or there's someone, his agent,
somebody in his family.
Agent, brother, whatever it was. They were like standing behind the other, and then Mac McClung goes up to him and tells him to go on like his shoulders, and then he was crouching down, and then he stands up. I'm like, there's no way this 5'11" dude's gonna jump over people that are almost twice his size when they're on top of each other. He did it. He didn't push off. He jumped right over them, clean jumped over them, got the ball and dunked it, and all his other dunks were crazy. I called Mac McClung to win this because I've been watching him since high school when I was like a 8th grader and he was like a sophomore or junior in high school. I predicted that one, and I'm not surprised because he has had hops. I've been watching him since I was a kid, And hopefully for the Sixers, he can get some minutes. Hopefully, I don't know. I feel like he's earned at least a shot.
I don't know. Not on my team, but I mean, he's good. I support him. I'll support him because I like a come-up story, like a Derrick Jones Jr. come-up story, like how he gets minutes. I just think that we already have too much depth at guard as it is. But hey, he can. If Harden's out for a game or something, or Maxey, hey, he can come in and get
I think he's
15
earned
minutes.
at least a shot.
He can play a game. Yeah, I mean, he's on the roster, and he'll be on a team that makes a deep playoff run this season.
Yeah,
So.
hopefully. And then I just want to take this one real quick, if you don't mind, Nick.
Go ahead.
Team Giannis beats Team LeBron, 184 to 175 in the All-Star game. The draft was interesting. What do you guys think about the draft?
I loved it.
The draft, for people that don't know, the draft was actually live. Usually it's pre-recorded like a week before, and then they just post it on TNT like when they're doing like a game or whatever. But this year it was live, meaning all the players were there sitting in chairs. It was almost like this is what they were trying to do. It's like when you're going out to the park and you pick teams and you get picked live before the game. That's exactly what happened. And it was funny because Giannis decided to pick Ja Morant when they were drafting the reserves, but Ja Morant was actually a starter, and so Ja Morant didn't walk out, and everyone was laughing, and it was really fun because it was something live, and people mess up, so it just gave kind of like a park feel, and just humanized Giannis and all the other players instead of just watching them and on the court going back and forth all the time. But I really enjoyed that live draft. What do you think, Danny?
I loved it because Jaren Jackson was picked last, and
Wasn't a king.
neither of the Kings were picked last. So I'm very glad we weren't disrespected in that manner. Everybody knew De'Aaron Fox was an all-star over Jaren Jackson, so I got to give respect to.
I would have picked Sabonis last.
You're crazy. Shout out LeBron for picking Fox. That's the only credit I'll ever give him.
It was the first time LeBron has lost in his 6 years of being an all-star captain, which is insane.
Mickey Mouse.
Curry was the first captain. He lost to him, and then it was KD a year or two, and that's been Giannis every other year. It hasn't been Kevin Durant, and they've all lost except this year. Giannis wins. Team Giannis wins, led by. This is why I wanted to take over this segment real quick. Led by Jason Tatum, who won MVP of the All-Star Game, 55 points on 22 for 31 from the field, 10 for 18 from 3, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block across 35 minutes. He helped Team Giannis overcome Jaylen Brown and Team LeBron. Shout out my Celtics. It was amazing. I didn't watch it. I watched the highlights in the morning. I know it's Mickey Mouse. There's no defense played, but he still did it, Jamie.
Very fraudulent.
It's fraudulent. I'll never disagree with you, but he did it. He accomplished it. And you know what? The past 5 seasons, it was either 5 or 6, I forget what the graphic said, the person who has won All-Star MVP has won Finals MVP as well. Go back. You can look up the graphic. I will post this on the FCP podcast Instagram story on Friday because that's when the podcast come out. So when you're listening to this, go check it out after. I'll make sure I'll write a reminder to post this on a Friday on the FCP_podcast Instagram.
I mean, you just jinxed it.
I think so too.
I did not jinx anything.
Finals MVP this year.
It's gonna be
It's gonna be
De'Aaron
Jason
Fox.
Tatum.
It'll be Russell Westbrook.
It's going to be Jason Tatum. But let's go through these rosters real quick because we didn't talk about the rosters because we didn't know what the rosters were going to be. We knew what the players were going to be, but we didn't exactly know what the rosters were going to be. So let's break down some of the rosters here. Team Giannis was Tatum, Lauri Markkanen. This was the team that won, obviously.
Yeah.
Tatum, Giannis, Lauri Markkanen, Donovan Mitchell, John Morant, Bam Adebayo, DeMar DeRozan, Damian Lillard, Drew Holiday, Pascal Siakam, Domantas Sabonis, and SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Obviously, this team won. Some notable performances. Jason Tatum, like I just talked about. Donovan Mitchell with 40 points. Back in Utah, by the way. 40 points, 10 assists, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, 60% from the field. And no other than Damian Lillard, 26 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, and 3 steals as well. Jumping over to Team LeBron, unless you guys have something to say on that team.
Me personally, I love that game from Donovan Mitchell. He was robbed. He was, well, if Tatum wouldn't have gotten, I think,
they were feeding him so hard.
If Tatum wouldn't have gotten 50, then I think this award would have been Donovan Mitchell's. But, I mean, me personally, you know, my favorite player of all time has gotten 2 All-Star MVPs. So, you know, anytime I see somebody get All-Star MVP, you know, I enjoy it. So, you know, yeah, it was good to see Jason Tatum do it, you know. So.
Jumping over to Team LeBron, the team that lost. Obviously, LeBron James, Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, which that was really interesting to see those 2 on the same team. That's crazy. I thought this team was going to clear the other side just because, listen to this roster. LeBron, Embiid, Jokic, Luka, Kyrie. That's just the starting 5. And then you got Paul George, De'Aaron Fox. What?
2023 NBA champion.
Paul George?
Yes.
De'Aaron Fox.
We'll see. Then De'Aaron Fox, Julius Randle, JB, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, and Jaren Jackson Jr. Some notable performances on that side of the ball. Jaylen Brown, who was the leading scorer for Team LeBron, 35 points, 14 rebounds. I don't think he's ever done that in an actual game.
Nope.
5 assists, 2 steals, 59% from the field, and of course, 25% from 3. Of course, he's going to shoot bricks in the All-Star game. Then Kyrie Irving with 32 points, 6 rebounds, 15 assists, 66% from the
That's
field.
a crazy game.
And then Nick 76er Joel Embiid with 32 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, shooting 74% from the field. So those are some notable performances
Joel
on
Embiid.
both sides of the ball. What do you have to say?
Joel and fraud.
What do you have to say about this one?
About what, them?
Yeah.
I mean, they lost, so nothing. I mean, fraudulent stats, I guess. I'm just playing. I mean, regardless of All-Star game, they're gonna have fun out there, and I think I like the performance from Jaylen Brown. Him and Tatum were going back to back. I always like to see whenever teammates are on opposite teams. So I like the De'Aaron and Sabonis on opposite teams.
And then we got De'Aaron and Tyrese again, which was so much fun.
I
love to see that.
John and Jaren.
I really miss Tyrese Halliburton, and seeing him and Fox together on an All-Star team was very refreshing and awesome to see as a Kings fan.
And it was cool seeing JB and JT go back at it.
That was a cool little battle.
As much as you hate
JB
seeing
won.
them score.
JB won that battle.
He
What do you
did.
mean?
He did.
No,
In that little
When
1v1
they were
thing
playing
they
against
had.
each other, yes.
Yeah,
Brown owned him.
Brown was taking some good shots.
Yeah.
Jumping into the next segment here,
How the top teams are going into the second half of the season.
and we're just doing the 10 teams that are either in the playoffs or play in. I'm sorry about 11 through 15. You're not really relevant today.
You're not
Sorry,
at
Lemicki.
all. Yes, sorry.
Again, some
fraud.
teams that are probably the 11 seed might jump up to the 10 seed, but this is as of today on February 22nd, 2023. Let's start it off with the East here, Nick,
Starting off with the Toronto Raptors.
at the 10 seed.
So, with the addition of Jakob Poeltl, I think this shows that they're buying into the team this season because, easily they could have sold all the players they had for multiple first-round picks. Like we saw, OG Anunoby got offered 4 first-round picks from the New York Knicks. Those are valuable picks because you never know how good or bad the New York Knicks are going to
Yeah,
be.
they're everywhere.
I think that this is a more built roster about, building a real roster around Scotty Barnes to make him actually benefit and play the real position that he is, small forward. So now you're running probably one of the best defensive lineups in the NBA, being Fred VanVleet, OG Scotty, Pascal, Jakob Poeltl. And then you have an amazing bench with Gary Trent and, other guys like that. I already think that they have an extremely deep bench, and any team in the play-in doesn't want to see them. Once they get out of that play-in realm, they could be a team to upset the second seed. So
I 1,000% agree. I actually said if there's a lower seed that has a chance to knock off a top 3 seed, it's the Raptors.
Yeah.
I completely agree with everything you just said. They have a few options who can defend your best player, and they also have a few options who can drop 30 points on any given night, that being Pascal, VanVleet, OG, Scotty, and even Gary Trent, who can light a spark. Or they could all drop 15 points. So that's where the problem lies. Offensively, they're very inconsistent. Besides Pascal, he always plays his role. But other than that, the other guys I mentioned, they're very inconsistent. They can have very off nights or very hot nights. And then also just defensive consistency. Besides OG, who will lock up everyone every night, the other guys can play great defense, but they're inconsistent. So if they're consistent, they could honestly knock off that 1st through 3 seed. No one would be surprised. But that's why they're the 10 seed, just inconsistency.
Yeah. Toronto's been weird because going into the season, I thought they were going to be top 5 seed, just like they were last year, coming in and kill it, former coach of the year, and a very, very well-rounded roster. But they come in and become very disappointing, and I believe that's in part to Scotty Barnes' lack of development. Nick Nurse, he's a fantastic coach, but he hasn't really been able to get it all together. So I think bringing in Jakob Poeltl was absolutely needed. He's a 7-footer that they absolutely lacked because they were running Pascal Siakam at the 5, who's 6'9", and that's just not going to work in the NBA all the time. So bringing in Poeltl to start, fantastic job, and I think I could see them flying up in the East sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to 9, to the Washington Wizards. Is this team finally starting to click? I think that,
Maybe.
No.
I think so. They go from the 12 seed to the 9.
Yeah, they're moving.
I mean,
So-
they're clicking.
They'll
but
probably
I'll
pass
let
the Hawks.
The addition of Kendrick Nunn has been great for the team's depth at point guard. They now have a really good playmaker off the bench for Monte Morris, despite Monte Morris, kind of being like backup point guard. I think that Kendrick Nunn adds a whole other element to that. I think that having somebody that can be really good off the bench for you like him is going to really add another element to the team's potential play-in run. So, nevertheless, though, I think that they have one of the best offensive big threes in the NBA, but the defense is what kills him. Porzingis is playing center when he should be playing power forward just because of how bad he is defensively. Bradley Beal's always been a terrible defender. Kuzma, he's kind of actually an okay defender, but they just don't have any good defenders besides kind of Kuzma, Gafford, and that's about it. And they just got rid of Will Barton, so for whatever reason, that's one that didn't make sense to me. But
I agree with you, but I would have to say after Bradley Beal, Kuz, and Kristaps Porzingis, none in Monte Morris are good. Denny Advia, he's pretty good as well. But after that, and especially the top three, their depth is just extremely underwhelming. So I don't really think there's too much to look forward to for the Wizards roster. Once again, in the post-Wall/Beal prime era, there's really not much to look forward to the rest of the season. In my opinion, I think you can look more into next season where let's see if Kuz can even multiply on this year, see if Beal can get back to that 30-point per game level that he has been the past 3 or 4
scoring
seasons.
title type of guy, yeah.
Exactly. See if Kristaps Porzingis another year under his belt post-injury, see if he can get back to kind of like the unicorn era. And if they can get back to that and add some nice depth pieces, then maybe they could probably jump up to the 6+ seed. But right now, there's really not too much to look forward to, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just don't see the Wizards making that big of a push for the rest of the year. I do think they will end up passing the Hawks. I think the Hawks will start to fall off unless their interim head coach becomes Jacques Vaughn or something.
Yeah.
Like some kind of similar role to that. But the Wizards, I really like their big three, and Beal, Porzingis, Kuzma, and you also have those other role players out there. So I thought they were going to be solid. They are only the 9 seed in typical Wizards fashion, so hopefully they can start picking it up. I do really like Denny Advia. He was one of my favorite players. He's honestly one of my favorite players in the league, which is kind of crazy to hear because I feel like nobody ever says that. But he was really good coming out of college. 6'9", 6'10", can honestly run the 1 through the 4, so he's a bit of a player you could really use anywhere, and he's not being utilized that well. So I think the Wizards next year could be solid. But as of right now, there's not a ton to look forward to.
He was not worth the 9th pick, though, I'll tell you that.
Well, not right now.
Yeah, they could have gotten somebody else. I was the season Westbrook was there, so I thought it was going to be really. I thought he was going to be really good for the spacing, defense. He's not been bad though. But moving on to Atlanta. They just fired, in my opinion, a top 5 coach in the NBA. He was one of the greatest defensive-minded coaches for a terrible defensive team. So now that you lose him, your team will definitely see results from losing him. I think that the best coach for this situation is Quinn Snyder. He's a great defensive and offensive coach. He led that Utah team to the first seed multiple years when they really didn't have much outside of their, top 7. And I think he does things very similar to Nate. This will be a playoff team for sure. I don't know. I don't think they'll be playoff. I think play-in is more their spot. I could see them falling out of the play-in, but we'll see. I feel like Sadiq Bey adds a whole other talent level to that locker room, and it kind of just depends on whatever coach is there to be able to handle the talent in that locker room.
Although I'm mostly leaning towards what you guys have been saying about the Hawks, where they're going to kind of fall apart and start dwindling down the standings just because of the loss of Nate McMillan, I'm actually kind of leaning more towards, or I'm thinking about, they actually might get a little better. Let me explain this, right? There's been a lot of in-house fighting supposedly with Nate McMillan and Trae Young. Mm-hmm. So maybe the loss of Nate McMillan will light a spark under Trae Young to be just more happy and more free, and actually maybe he might play better. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's going to... I don't think he'll play better, personally, me. Just
but
because
maybe that stress of Nate McMillan gone might be able to make him play freer.
I think I agree with you, but I feel like it's just something that's in his head a little bit, where he just thinks that he's kind of like this top 15 player in the NBA, but he's not. I think he's barely touching 20, and I think they have so much talent. Kind of like how your Celtics used to be. There's just too much talent in that locker room, and there's not enough ball to go around to it. John Collins is having a terrible season scoring the basketball. Clint Capella is doing Clint Capella. I mean, he's never been a scorer anyways. DeJounte Murray has been the only bright spot on that team. Trae Young had an off season. He wasn't even an all-star this season. Right. And that's fine with me. Your boy got in there. But,
shout out De'Aaron Fox.
I think that I'm leaning towards what we guys have agreed to. Like, they're going to kind of fall down just because they lost Nate McMillan. What do you got to play for now? You don't even have a real head coach. On the other hand, though, I think there was in-house fighting, so maybe they might be happy with this decision. It actually might make them play better.
Yeah.
That's just based off the news we've been hearing, but I'm definitely leaning more towards what you guys say.
Yeah, so Atlanta, especially after firing Nate McMillan, I just think they're going to fall off. You lose that defensive-minded head coach on a team that already lacked defense. I just don't see how that's going to add up. Again, I could see your standpoint on Trae Young, seeing if that kind of lights a spark under him. We'll just have to see, because it's kind of crazy how they were like absolute weapons in the playoffs for the last 3 years. We all saw the villain of Trae Young in New York, how he owned them in the playoff series, and now they've bring in DeJounte Murray, who we all thought was going to be the light of defense that they need, and now they're sitting at 500, or maybe they're below, I don't know, and being one of the biggest disappointments in the league. So, I mean, I could see Nate McMillan being fired being kind of a spark, but when you're losing that big of a name at head coach, I just don't see it ending that well, and I do think they will probably end up falling behind either one of the Raptors or Wizards in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, this is a very, very positive outcome for this team. Miami Heat, they had a great trade deadline and buyout deadline. Not the deadline, but buyout so far. They got former All-Star Kevin Love, former champ, to fill that huge hole that they have at the power forward. They still kind of didn't even fill the backup power forward, but I still feel like this was big enough for them, to still be able to run Cody Martin as the backup power forward. That's not bad, I guess.
It's not bad off the bench.
Jovic. He could always do that.
He's been kind of underwhelming.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, he's better than having a 6'5" guy run power forward.
Exactly.
Then they also get Cody Zeller, like you said. He's always proved to be a very solid backup big man. I think he provides a lot of scoring and a lot of defense. It's okay defense, but I think that this, all in all, is going to make them be what they were projected to be, and I think that they're going to be a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference by the end of the season.
Wow.
Yeah, the new acquisition of Kevin Love, obviously, most likely going to be their starting power forward now, and probably kick Caleb Martin to the bench, understandably so. On paper, this team has good, not great, but good depth, with their top 5 being very well-rounded. But they can never quite get it together. That's been their problem this year. On paper, they're honestly just as good as the depth the Celtics have, almost. But they just have, you have Tyler Hero coming off your bench.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a starting shooting guard in the NBA.
And Lowry and VO.
VO, exactly. They just never have quite gotten their chemistry together for some reason this season, after last season making it all the way to the
shot away from the finals.
Away from the finals, exactly, to the Eastern Conference Finals. So we're going to see what happens there on that standpoint, but I definitely think the acquisition of Kevin Love will help them out, especially as their new starting power forward.
I think it'll be huge. I absolutely love this for the Miami Heat. They bring in, like I was saying earlier, they bring in a stretch forward, which they absolutely needed. A legit 6'10" power forward rather than running like 6'5" Duncan Robinson at the 4. This is massive.
He doesn't even play anymore.
I know. A lot more defense, a lot more offense. Yeah. A team that was in the finals just a few years ago lost to a fraudulent Lakers team, and now they're Mickey Mouse ring.
That's insane.
They're going to come in and keep rebuilding. They are getting older. Jimmy Butler is only getting older. Same with Bam, Kyle Lowry. So I hope that they can continue to prove themselves. I can definitely see them passing the Knicks. But
I think they'll pass the Nets, too.
You think they'll pass the Nets? I really like this young Nets team.
I do, too. I love it.
I just think for as inexperienced as they are, I could definitely see them passing them as well. But, I look forward to the Heat being really good for the next few years.
Yeah. Moving on to the New York Knicks, I kind of touched on them a second ago. If the most improved team, there's the most improved player of the year award. If there was a most improved team award, this will be the team that would take it home. Yes.
You're talking real Italian right now. You got your hands.
Yeah. The Knicks was most improved?
Yes.
Sacramento?
Okay. y'all and them, yes. But, yeah, like I was saying before you interrupted me, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, as far as the Eastern Conference,
Eastern Conference,
as far as the Eastern Conference goes, they would do that. But they were in shambles last season with multiple players being booed, wanting out, and all that controversy that everybody was going through. And now they're a top 6 team in the East. One of I'd still have them the deepest conference in the NBA. Now they have 3 All-Stars. The team is most likely a first-round exit, but NBA is 100 times better when the Knicks are good.
It is. I like that.
Continue watching the Knicks' big 3, I would say, with RJ, Brunson, and Randall continuing to ball out in New York. New York basketball is back? ? Because it was back a few years ago, and then Trae Young beat them. And then they kind of fell off last year. But they're back again, so let's see if they can consistently stay back. I think the acquisition of Jalen Brunson this past offseason is a big plus, while RJ continues to progress and Randall continues to play at his all-star level. This team has a bright future ahead of them. And also, I think this is an under-talked-about topic. the acquisition of Josh Hart cannot go without
That's
notice. I think that's
massive.
key. As literally, I'd say a top 3-and-D player. Obviously
Yeah.
not top 3
Off the
player
bench,
in any
yeah.
remarks, but for someone off the bench, he's probably top 3 at what he does.
Yeah.
Make a 3-point shot and play great defense, get some buckets along the way. He is probably top 3 in that regard. So I think that's a not talked about enough topic is the acquisition of Josh Hart to a team that's trying to make a playoff push. He will guard your best team's best player, and he's coming off the bench. So I'm very happy to see the Knicks make that move. And he's back with Brunson, so that's going to help team chemistry, like 2K plus 20 chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for New York, this entire season is going to come down to one man, and his name is R.J. Barrett. He's been pretty disappointing this year after what we assumed would be an all-star season, and I just can't tell you, like, if the Knicks will be good without him. He has to step up. Spike Lee, he's going to condemn you if you're a bad Knicks player, and R.J. Barrett's kind of on that path. So
He's not bad.
I know, but for being the number 3 overall pick, he hasn't
He's
been
averaging 20 points a game.
He hasn't been the number 3 overall pick, is what I'm saying.
I would say his...
And like in big games, he has to perform, especially when it comes to playoff time. Like New York gets ruthless. You can't live in New York only averaging 20 points a game as the 3rd overall pick and expect to be praised.
I would say his 20 points per game are also pretty quiet.
Yes, they're almost, I'm not going to say empty, but they're quiet, to say the least. Especially with guys like Jalen Brunson are completely outperforming you in his first year. Same with Randall. He was an all-star. So this season's going to come down to R.J. Barrett. I also really like this the Josh Hart signing. He's you already covered him, but one thing that goes under the radar for him is his rebounding. He's a fantastic rebounder for his size. I'm pretty sure his career high is like 22 or 23, so he's going to bring a lot more rebounding and size and intensity to that team.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to the other team in New York, the Brooklyn Nets. From KD, Kyrie, Harden, Aldridge, and Claxton to Dinwiddie, Cam Thomas, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Claxton. This team will retain that top 6 spot, in my opinion. I said the Hawks could steal it, but I don't think it's going to happen. They have the deepest roster in the NBA. Their defense is amazing. They have scores in Mikal and Cam Thomas. They have a young coach. This team is easily one of the most likable teams in the NBA. And I think
they were.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that I think what they're going to continue to do this season is kind of build the brand of the defense that they've been known to have beforehand of the KD era. But I think that this team's going to go deep into the play-in. I don't think they're a playoff team. But as far as you get what I'm saying. As far as a second round team, I don't see that happening. I think that they're a first round team. They're going to give. It could be a 7. Let's say 3. They would play
the Cavs.
Right now. Okay, I thought they were the 60. My bad. They would play the Cavs right now. I feel like they could give the Cavs 6 games.
They could honestly beat them.
They could beat the Cavs, but it's not going to happen.
No, probably.
Donovan Mitchell's too good.
I agree. They look like the most. I think you guys would agree with this. They look like the most different team coming off All-Star break.
They absolutely are.
They absolutely.
Completely different roster.
They're completely different because they traded big name players and got like 4 or 5 guys back in return. So they've changed. They've had a lot in return for just a couple guys that have completely changed the makeup of this entire roster. I'm excited to see what Bridges can do in his new role, being a number 1/number 2 option on the team. He hasn't been that in his career yet because he's been behind Booker. He's been behind Devin Booker and the Suns, Chris Paul. So I'm excited to see him as a number 1 or 2 option on the team. So let's see what he can do with that. Let's also see how Claxton can do with his new role. Now he's the complete anchor down in the paint with KD gone. And, he's now the complete anchor as a big man. He's now probably the number 3 and number 4 option on this team behind Dinwiddie. And then jumping into the next guy, Cam Thomas. I'm not a complete believer yet. I got to see what he does after the All-Star break for the rest of the season, see if he can keep the production of his 44, 45, and 27 points. Even if you just average 20 points per game the rest of the season, it will give me hope that next season he can kind of jump back up to that 25 points per game and see if he can do that consistently. Again, I'm not a complete believer right now, maybe like some of you guys are, but I got to see what he does more consistently. But if he can continue this high production, I think they can knock off the Cavs. We shall see.
The Nets are one of my favorite teams in the league. They get rid of KD and Kyrie, and they bring in a ton of young studs, and I think this will be the team to watch out for in the next 5 years. You got 2 guys who are potential superstars in Cam Thomas and Mikal Bridges. I think both of those guys can become that great duo out in Brooklyn. We saw it with Mikal Bridges a few nights ago, had 45 points. Cam Thomas, we know what he could do, had 45 3 straight. So I think those two are guys to look out for potential superstars. Spencer Dinwiddie, he's already proven himself. In Brooklyn, he's already proven himself too with his first stint. So everybody there already loves him. You got Cam Johnson and Nick Claxton, two proven guys. Nick Claxton's been one of the most improved players of the year this year. I think that goes very unnoticed. He goes from just a role player center to like a true starter.
Top
true
15,
starter, top
10
15.
center,
Yeah. So Nick Claxton's development has been absolutely spectacular to watch, but their depth is what it's gonna put them over. You got guys like Dorian Finney-Smith, Ben Simmons off the bench, Joe Harris, Seth Curry. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody.
Joe Harris,
Seth Curry.
You got.
Yuta Watanabe.
Yeah, you got. Nevertheless, you got a really good team out in Brooklyn.
Yeah, so that team is going to be very, very good for a long time.
Yeah.
So I love this new look Nets team.
Yeah, I'm very happy that I can cheer on Nick Claxton now that KD and Kyrie are gone, because he's 35 minutes or less from where I'm from. So,
yeah.
Moving on to the Cleveland Cavaliers, this is where we get into the best of the best, the contenders, the people that are most likely going to be in the semifinals. These four teams. Cleveland Cavaliers. This team is going to go very far in the playoffs. I think that their floor is the semifinals. I think their ceiling is the NBA Finals. I think that's how good they are. They add a 3-time champion, Danny Green, to add a vet presence to the locker room. They didn't even need him, but they got him anyways. A great shooter, great defender. They have an extremely deep roster, having players like Lamar Stevens. They have Ricky Rubio. They just have so many good players off the bench, and then they have that great starting lineup. Caris LeVert. They have a spectacular starting lineup, and I think that you have a lot to look forward to if you're a Cleveland Cavaliers fan.
Yeah, for the Cavs, I don't completely understand why they bought out Kevin Love. It must have been more on Love's standpoint of wanting a bigger role with a team like the Heat now that we know he's going to be starting power forward. So I can understand it on that standpoint, but also, why would you not want that veteran presence in your locker room and kind of be like, sorry, Kevin Love, just stick it out the rest of this season, then your contract expires anyway. So I don't understand that. But anyways, Kevin Love goes to Miami Heat. That's a different topic. I do really like Danny Green signing. I think that's a good move to bring in another veteran guy to replace Kevin Love's esque type of veteran presence on the team. So I'm excited to see what they can do. Danny Green's a good 3-and-D player.
The Cavaliers, I think, have the best starting lineup in the NBA based off of well-roundedness. You have Darius Garland, who's probably a top 3 playmaker in the entire NBA. You have Donovan Mitchell, who will probably be a first-team All-NBA guard. You have Isaac Okoro, who is kind of the role player on that starting lineup, but he does exactly what he needs to do, and that's defense. You have Evan Mobley, former, number 2 overall pick?
Something like that.
I believe he was number 2 overall pick. He has been completely like just a monster for him. He does everything they needed him to. He's lived up to the expectations. And then All-Star, well, he wasn't this year, but last year All-Star Jared Allen, one of the best shot blockers in the NBA, fantastic on offense. And he's actually a very smart guy. I'm pretty sure he's like into comic books or something. So the Cavaliers are a very, very good team, and I think they are absolutely, without a doubt, championship contenders.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to the Philadelphia 76ers, my team. We had a great trade deadline, in my opinion, picking up Dwayne Dedmon. Now we get even deeper with our defensive team now. If Joel Embiid gets injured, we have plenty of depth for that. I think that was the move for getting him, and Montrezl Harrell's already kind of an undersized power forward as it is, so now we add on to having an actual real center there, and we can run a very good lineup. I was thinking in my head, like a really good lineup of Trez, Dedmon, Niang, Milton, and Melton off the bench in the playoffs. That's good enough to, lock down a full starting 5 of players. So I think that'll be really nice for them at least. And I believe that I think that they'll go really far into the playoffs. I don't know if we're a championship level team, but I think that we're definitely conference finals worthy. I'm just not too bought in because Harden I don't know. I just don't like his play style with us. I mean, you have Joel Embiid and you're still iso balling. Like, he's been a spectacular playmaker this season, but he's still doing way too much iso ball, and the result of that has been moving.
Bro, your hand movements with the Italian hand is just crazy today. You're going like, I wish I could show you, but you're going like, Mamma Mia.
It's in my veins, but
damn right, you got pasta through the veins.
I do, but anyways, to move on from that, it's cause from Tyrese Maxey to have to go to the bench. And for me, I don't like that because Tyrese Maxey's my second favorite player in the NBA. So from him being an all-star at the beginning of the season, from him now going down to the bench, I have just not liked it at all. I'd rather us get rid of Harden and have Maxey be that guy because he could do that. And,
Definitely.
And have a more averaged out roster with all that money that he's taking up from us anyways. I think that we would be better without him, 100%. So
jumping into the 76ers for me, let's see how Harden continues to play on his role as a point guard and not, because in the past, his whole career basically since, but after the Thunder, let's just say Rocket career and his little baby stint with the Nets, he was 30 points per game every night, if not more, winning MVP. That's not his role anymore. His role now is to be a pure point guard, still giving you, Nick can attest to this, still giving you like 22, 23 points per game, but it's almost 10 assists, right?
Yeah.
Almost 10 assists every night. He is he's probably one of the biggest names to have completely transformed his game, and it's not really being talked about, Nick.
Yeah. I mean, he's a great playmaker. He always has been.
But it's even more now because his role is not to score 30 points. That's Joel's job.
But he's still at the same time as that, he's still just kind of, in my opinion, not. He's still trying to play that way. I know that the assists look great, but he's still out here shooting 46% from the field, and putting up a lot of shots. I'm not going to get into how many, whatever, but he's just, in my opinion, he's still being too ball dominant, and he's playing like it's his team, but it's not. In 10 seconds, he could be off the team. So that's the one thing I've kind of disliked about him.
On the other note with the 76ers, why is Tyrese still off the bench? And he hasn't gotten back to his pre-injury form where he was averaging, 25 points per game? Nick, you would know more than me. You're the 76ers fan. Why do you think he's still coming off the bench? Why is Doc doing that? Because
he wants kind of what I was saying. He wants Harden to go out there, average 26 points per game on 13 free throws, and just have him and he kind of just wants what the Lakers were having Westbrook do. Lead the backup squad. Right.
But he's young and he's good.
He's too good for it.
It's so weird to me.
I'm telling you, if he leaves that team, if Maxey wants out, I think I'm giving up on the Sixers.
Is that going to be your new Westbrook?
Yes, but he already is. But I mean, I like I've said to y'all, Hornets are like my second favorite team, so I might commit to that if Maxey gets done terribly by the Sixers, just because it's Harden. Harden's a 34-year-old man, bro. He's not.
Yeah. So the thing with the Sixers that absolutely befuddles me is that Tyrese Maxey, he's coming off the bench, but when you have guys like Shake Milton and DeAnthony Melton who can come off your bench, why does Maxey need to come off the bench? You already have two great guards that can come off the bench, and you're not starting one of the best top guards in the league who is probably going to be an all-star pre-injury.
Absolutely.
And that's so crazy to me. Sixers got to make that change. Bring Maxey to the starting lineup. I could see the idea of, he brings that spark off the bench, but with somebody who's that good, needs more minutes.
He's an all-star level player.
Yes, he's an all-star level player that can easily put up 25, 26 points a game.
With 8 assists.
Especially with Harden being that playmaker, he can create so many shots for Maxey, and why they're not using that, I don't know. So
Doc
hopefully...
I'm not going to sit here and say he's a bad coach, but he's just, I don't know.
He's not the brightest when it comes to a few things. I think the Sixers, though, they're going to be set for the rest of the year. I just think they got to make that one Maxey switch, and they'll be fine.
I have two more just takes on this real quick. Jalen McDaniels, I think that's it's just not talked about at all. I think that's a huge pickup.
Yeah,
that's a big upgrade.
Huge pickup for us.
But who'd you get out? Who'd you trade? Matisse Thybulle. Honestly, in my opinion, that's a big offensive upgrade. Defensively, Matisse Thybulle, he holds down that perimeter defense, but offensively, Jay McDaniels dropped 20 points in the first half against the Celtics a month ago. I'll never forget that. If he actually turns into something, just because I was so surprised. Offensively, that is a huge steal for a team that's trying to make an NBA Finals push. I think that's a big key for your bench offensive scoring. Yeah. Also, my final take on the Sixers, then we'll jump over to the Bucks with Nick. But let's get McClung some minutes, baby. Let's do it.
Yeah,
that's my final take.
I don't see why not.
Moving on to Milwaukee.
You got nothing to say on that.
I know. Moving on to Milwaukee. I don't feel good about saying this, but the Jay Crowder deal to me, I've said it before. I think I said it last time. I think this makes them the title favorite. For me personally, that's just me. That's just me, though. A lot of people are not agreeing with me on that. And that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I think it's huge, though. People are not making a big deal out of it. They won a title with P.J. Tucker, who's a Walmart great value version of Jay Crowder. He cannot shoot as good as him. He can't play defense as good as him. He can't score without getting set up. You get what I'm saying? So I think that he's going to bring a lot as far as that goes to them. I think that he's a way better locker room presence. He can bring a group of guys together and go to the finals. He's been to 3 finals in the last 7 years. and he's never won one. I think he can finally do it.
We shall see. For me, the Bucks, I agree. Let's see how. Well, I don't agree that they're the finals favorite. I'll say that out loud. Obviously, I'm picking the Celtics on that one, but I do want to see how Jay Crowder, that new acquisition, works with them. He hasn't played yet for the Bucks. He's been sitting on the bench before the All-Star break. They're waiting for post-All-Star break. But let's not forget, this man has not played an NBA minute since the playoffs last year when they got absolutely throttled by the Dallas Mavericks in game. What was that? 5 or 6?
6, I think.
6, I think so. They lost by almost 50 points, or if not 50 points. Absolute blowout for no reason. He hasn't played then. That's almost a year if you think about it. It's almost, and the playoffs are in 2 months. He has not played an NBA minute. Yes, he's been in the gym. Yes, he's been practicing, but nothing's like getting on an NBA floor really and playing against other grown men who are in the NBA. So let's see if he's still in shape. Also, I want to see, I know I talked smack on the last show about Chris Middleton being a C-tier player right now. I do want Chris Middleton to get back to All-Star level. He will get back to there. Let's work his minutes up at a healthy level that the doctors agree on. Let's get this man back to All-Star level and let's see what he can do because the Bucks are their second seed.
Yeah.
If you get Chris Middleton back to full health and if Jay Crowder can play how he has been, I'll be worried for Boston Celtics. But until then, I'm not too worried.
Yeah, and just before you go, Jay Crowder was in your favorite moment in NBA history when Chris Paul cut the lead to 40.
Cut the lead to 42
Yeah.
against the Dallas Mavericks with that game-changing 3.
Yeah.
So shout out Jay Crowder.
Biggest shot of all time.
Biggest shot of all time in Game 7. Cut the lead to 42. So that was a league-changing shot. So with that said, let's get into the Bucks. So I think they're going to win the championship.
I don't think so, but I think they'll get there.
If they don't, it's going to be really between them and Boston, who we'll talk about in a minute. The Bucks just look stacked. Giannis has that finals winning experience, unlike Jason Tatum over in Boston. So we'll see what the Bucks can do. This is really going to come down to Chris Middleton too. He's really he's got to get back into all-star form. Sorry about that. He's been in a bit of a slump coming back from injury, and that injury lasted a very long time. So hopefully he can come back, be a beast. They brought in, who was it, Joe Ingles?
Yeah, they've had Joe Ingles.
Yeah, they bring in Joe Ingles last year. He's just been awesome. He's a spark plug off the bench. They lose Serge Ibaka for whatever reason his problem was. Maybe it's because Giannis didn't like his cooking on his YouTube. But just whatever team has Giannis Antetokounmpo is an automatic finals contender, and that's really all I got to say.
Yeah. Moving on to the best team in the NBA, the Boston Celtics. The best team in the league, up and down. I feel like, top 8, they probably have the best team in the NBA by far. Malcolm Brogdon probably is the sixth man of the year now. But not getting Podol to me is a huge L. Of course, you semi-make up for it with Muscala as far as the offensive end.
Yeah, offensively, he's
better than Podol. But I feel like defensively, that's just such a huge hit to not get. But, Muscala is better than Luke Cornett defensively, so, hey, you got better. So, I'm not as high as I was on them at the beginning of the season. Of course, I think this team could go to the finals and sweep. I think they can sweep through the playoffs. That's the potential they have. They have 2 top 10 players in the NBA on the team. And yes, I said Jaylen Brown is a top 10 player in the NBA.
That's crazy.
He is undoubtedly a top 10 player in the NBA. JB, JT, the rest of the big 6, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But they're going to get it done in the playoffs. They're going to perform really well. But I do think the lack of moves that they made kind of could come back to get him. I think that could happen. But I feel like as far as the Sam Hauser thing, I feel like that's the only thing that's going to bite them if it does. Or he could go out there and play his role and shoot 2 threes a game and make them. But I was looking, if Gallinari comes back, I think that it's going to be extremely hard for anybody to even get a game on y'all.
Oh, that's what I like to hear. On the front of us not making moves, it's like, why would you want to shake up something that's already doing well? That's my take on it. I think little moves like we did for Mike Muscala, I was hoping for Podol, that would have been a little move as well.
Yeah.
But I'm content with Muscala after seeing his first 3 games as a Celtic and him just nailing threes after three, step back 3, pull up 3. This man's almost 7 feet tall doing this. No one's doing that except Mike Muscala and some All-Stars. He's probably the only non-All-Star that's shooting like that as a big man, that consistently. I think he has the best 3-point percentage as a big man, which is really nice to see, besides the All-Stars, of course. For my Celtics, though, just a few games, like I said, of seeing Mike Muscala before the All-Star break. He's been great, proving again Brad Stevens is a fantastic GM. We have 1 open roster spot. Who's that going to be? I don't know.
What if y'all got Ibaka?
DeMarcus Cousins.
I don't really think definitely not DeMarcus. He'll never play in the NBA again. DeMarcus Cousins will never play in the NBA again.
Ibaka's better than
Ibaka, maybe, but it has to be someone. Ibaka wouldn't be bad. I don't see Will Barton, based off what I said earlier about him probably wanting money this summer, and it wouldn't really work out. Ibaka, maybe, if he wants to come to be content and be like, you're
One thing y'all could run a kind of tall ball lineup, move Grant Williams to the backup small forward, and then you have Ibaka as a power forward, and then you got.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Ibaka. We're gonna have to see. We'll probably just get someone random, like just a random that we've gotten in the past, like
David Nwaba would be nice.
I think David Nwaba is a good pick.
I love David.
I would
Nwaba.
love Michael Carter Williams, bring the hometown kid back to Boston. Isaiah Thomas, that's my dream, just to get him a ring. But we're gonna see on that front. I'm not exactly sure. But what do you got to say about my Boston Celtics, Jamie?
So I'm gonna dive into the team, the best team in the NBA that's not in Northern California. The Boston Celtics are completely set for an NBA championship. We saw what they could do last year. Absolute threats. Ever since the bubble, too. We saw Jason Tatum showing out alongside Jaylen Brown. Last year they go to the finals. They can't get it done against Steph Curry and the Warriors.
Yeah.
But now it looks like they're better than they've ever been. Bringing in Mike Muscala was a sensational move by Brad Stevens. Bringing in a stretch big, which they definitely needed because Robert Williams doesn't necessarily stretch the floor.
Provide any sort of spacing, yeah.
And Mike Muscala is one of the best in the league at it. He was fantastic on the Thunder, and I think he's going to provide a much bigger role out in Boston. So the Celtics will be a team to watch out for, not just this year, but probably within the next 5
years.
I think 5 years. As long as Jason Tatum stays in form and doesn't go to the Lakers and fulfill Kobe's legacy, the Celtics will be very, very good. So I definitely think they are finals contenders. And I could definitely see them winning it all this year.
Hopefully. And today we're going to audible, guys. We are almost an hour into the show. We're going to do Western Conference as well. But we got to throw an audible out in the field because we don't want to keep you guys here for almost 2 hours. So we're going to save this for our Monday podcast along with, what else, Jamie?
So, we're also going to be doing our power forward tier list.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
That's a long one.
It's going to be a bit of a long one.
It'll probably be an hour as well.
It'll probably be an hour. We'll
probably not as much news.
Yeah, there won't be as much news.
There was a lot of news today.
Yeah.
We're throwing an audible out in the field today because we don't want to keep you guys here forever. We want to keep our minds fresh.
Yep. We got some bomb hours to eat. So, with that being said, thank you all for tuning into WVUA 90.7 FM and the Full Court Press Podcast. We will be back Monday with our current starting power forward tier list and how the top teams in the West look going into the second half of the season. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at FCP_podcast_UA and on TikTok at FCP_podcast. This is Jamie, Alex, and Nick signing out.
Peace. See you guys.